Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video we've got another weekly breakdown of price action on index futures for the week of April 13 through 17 of 2026. This week was quite an explosive week with price action, a lot of good trades in this week, and as we go into and break down price action, I think you'll start to see just how powerful following quarterly theory is and monitoring time cycles and sequential SMT. So without further ado, let's get into the video. First off, let's look at our 1 hour time frame, which shows us the weekly cycle for the entire week. If we look at price action here, we don't see any weekly sequential SMT on our chart. What I want you to notice and pay attention to, though, is beginning the week we had this very large NWOG or new week opening gap. Whenever we get these large gaps like this, I typically like to sit out Monday's price action just so that I can see what happens over Monday to gauge a better direction on the market. And so that's what I did. But let's take a look at Monday to see what happened so that we can prepare ourselves for Tuesday's price action. Okay, so here we are on Monday's price action here. And we'll start with NQ and ES and take a look at these two pairs first. First thing we notice, of course, is the very large new week opening gap that sent us way lower, sweeping out some of these prior day lows over here. So again, as I mentioned, what I typically like to do whenever we have a large new week opening gap, just because price can be a little bit unpredictable going into Monday, I like to sit those Mondays out. Of course, that doesn't mean that you have to. There are still trades within these here, as we'll go on to see. But I tend to find them a little bit more difficult to trade, especially for newer traders. But for me personally, I like to sit it out just because I don't want to put on too much risk when the market is trying to pick a side in a direction here. So first of all, let's look at our daily time cycle and our 15-minute time frame so we can see what transpired in price action here overnight so we can get a better feel for what the New York AM session is going to do this Monday. So one of the first things I like to look at, we know we've already created the large new week opening gap. We've already traded below some of this liquidity here in these prior days. One thing I rely heavily on going into price action like this is the daily cycle. Just because all of the assets have already traded below the prior day low, so it's not possible to get a weekly cycle at this point. So at this point, I'm letting Asia pass by so that I can see what happens in the London to New York session, so I can get a feel for how is price going to react at the 9:30 open. Right off the bat, you'll notice we had a sequential SMT here between New York quarter and the London low, or London quarter here in Q2. Seeing that, I knew that the open would help expand us further along in price and likely close off the new week opening gap. It's also clear that the NASDAQ and ES are both a little bit stronger in comparison to YM, which is the asset that did take the London quarter low, as you can see here. So what am I watching for here? I'm watching for the candle that specifically takes out that liquidity there, that quarter's low. So it would be the 730 candle. So I'm going to mark that out as the candle I'm watching for a true change in the state of delivery. And I'll mark the same candle on all assets here. And all we're waiting for is a closure above this candle. As soon as we get that, we can go ahead and enter a long position on the market, expecting higher prices going into the New York AM session. Something else that's important to note, especially on days where you're going to expect explosive price action, is not always will there be a retest of the TCISD candles opening price. And that's especially so whenever you see these fair value gaps form as well. So sometimes you'll only get an SMT fill or perhaps some sort of breaker entry or something of that nature, or an IFVG. And those will be common PD arrays that I'll enter off of as well. But on these particular days, it's common to see that price won't come back and test those. So there's no fair value gap on YM, but you'll see that YM did come down later in the morning there and did tag the TCISD right around 10 a.m. So that's one particular entry you could have taken if you were watching YM to play a little bit of catch up after it put in this down move here, tagged the TCISD, and then of course closed off its new week opening gap here. If you drop down to the 90-minute cycle, there was no offering here that morning, which is common to see whenever you're going to have this explosive price action too. So no big deal. But again, as I said, I skip these Mondays when price is going to be like this, just so I can see whether or not we close off the new week opening gap, continuing on further, giving us bullish bias for the week, as was the case in this week. And so seeing that, I knew we would have a nice strong bullish week. So looking back at our weekly cycle here on the 1 hour chart, what do I have to target up above us? And going into the daily, of course, we have all these highs up here to target as well. And then of course we have all-time highs within reach as well, which is really only about 1,300 points away or so, I believe it was, by the end of this day. So really not too far. And of course on ES, a good little length or YM there, and a little ways away on ES here. But we had such a strong bullish reaction coming out of this candle here as it tagged this large fair value gap at the new week opening gap drop. So nice candle here to give us a nice bias for the week of longs. So looking into the price action for the next day, what do I want to look for right now at the close of Monday? Well, I want to look at how did Monday close, not only in relation to the new week opening gap, but also the prior day's closure. So we can see on NQ we closed above the high, so giving me a bullish bias for the next day based on candle closure. Same thing with ES, and looking at YM, a failure to close above previous day high. We had such a bullish day that likely YM will play a little bit of catch up here in the following day. So that's our bias going into the next day, is Monday's high. So that would be my target for my low-hanging fruit going into Tuesday. Okay, so now we're back onto the hourly chart to look at our weekly cycle to see how we're stacking up here. And right off the bat, you'll notice as well that we've already traded up above the prior day's high here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that blue line there so that that's not distracting us. We're already closed off the new week opening gap. So at this point, again, like I mentioned, by the time that we get to the New York AM cycle here, and we are trading around 9 o'clock, I'm looking at the prior action overnight for myself to see, engage, did we have any other daily cycles put in on our 15-minute time frame that would help me get a bias going into the New York AM session. I already know that I'm going to be bullish, but I'm looking to see where can I get into the market at. So looking at price here, we can see that we did take out the Asia lows with the London quarter, and also in the New York AM, we also took out the London lows as well. So a nice little two-stage here of daily sequential SMT. And if we look at YM here, you'll start to see those come into play as well. So again, what am I watching for once we do this in the New York AM session here? I'm looking for the specific candle that did it, which is our 6:30 AM candle. So I'm going to mark that out. And I'll do that on all three assets. So what do we notice again with this daily cycle? As soon as the change in state of delivery is confirmed, we also see we have a fair value gap that's been formed, making this particular sequential SMT more probable that it will play out. We can also see that we didn't get a tag of it till 9:30 on YM and 8:15 as well. So a couple of areas we could have gotten long there just based on the daily cycle itself. We could put our stop at the low, could have put our stop here at this low as well. Of course, you can just see how explosive and reactive to these daily cycles that the index futures are as well. But we can go ahead and take a look at our 90-minute cycle. Once this low has been formed, this will be a protected low for the morning. And we can look at our 90-minute cycle to see if we have anywhere that we can get on side here as well. Because we don't expect price to drop all the way down to these lows down here, invalidating that sequential SMT on the daily cycle. So what do we see here? Right at the 9:30 open, just prior to it, we have a sequential SMT that was formed at 9:30 on YM, taking out the previous quarter, 90-minute quarter here, Q2, so Q3 here. And let's see, this is 9:30 candle, but it's a bullish close candle. Let me just check ES as well. ES failed to take the low. So it's the 9:30 candle, and 9:30's candle is bullish here, so I'd have to use this next candle here, which is the bearish candle. So I can go ahead and mark that out. And again, what you'll notice is we put in this large fair value gap here, confirming it. But also, at this point, we can't expect price to drop a lot of points here just to come back and tag this necessarily. So we're looking for alternate entries, perhaps at the breaker or an FEG fill as well, which is what we get here with YM at the 9:45 candle. And so in days like this, where the leading asset or the stronger asset just immediately pushes off, I'm looking to trade either the weaker asset or the middle asset and trying to get an entry somewhere. We can see ES didn't really offer an entry here either. And so what I would be looking for then is likely an entry on YM. And so I would take an entry inside this fair value gap here with my stop just below the down close candle there. Just targeting a simple 2R, which we see that we eventually hit closer into the afternoon session here. So of course you can tighten this stop up a little bit more if you want. I knew that today would be an explosive day, and also this 2R here puts me at about the 2 to 2.5 standard deviation from the defining range here in quarter one of the New York AM 90-minute cycle. So I'm pretty confident we could reach this high here, given that the NASDAQ and ES were just so explosive, reaching up past the 4th standard deviation and beyond. So we should easily have been able to reach 2 to 2.5. So it's pretty comfortable with that stop and the risk to reward there for myself. So nice little trade there that I took on Tuesday. And so that's what transpired there. And then even in the afternoon, we see we got another continuation cycle there where you could have caught even more of a trade and position going on long as well. So now let's take a look at the next day and see what Wednesday's price action offers. And of course, in order to do that, we need to see how the day closed in relation to the previous day, which is not hard to tell. We had a very explosive day on Tuesday, and we've closed well above Monday's high, giving us a bullish bias for the next day as well. So we'll go ahead and play out price action for Wednesdays, and we'll see what transpired there and see what we can do and break down. Okay, so again, we can't really expect that price would run all the way back down, taking out Tuesday's low, just for us to be bullish this day. So likely we're going to be relying on that daily cycle again to get a feel for where can we position ourselves intraday going into the New York AM session and what type of price action we can expect. So let's take a look at our daily cycle again on our 15-minute time frame and break down what happened overnight as well. As we can see here, there was a daily cycle put in the afternoon. And let me just jump over to YM so we can see that as well. So we have Asia quarter, London quarter, New York AM quarter, and then of course the PM quarter here. And so again, all I'm watching for when we go through price like this is to see what highs and lows are taken out on the previous quarter, so I can expect what will price action do in the current quarter. So what I'm going to do here is actually back price up just a little bit to show what was price doing closer to the New York Open, so that I can get a feel for which direction in the market I'm going to be positioning myself in and why. So let's back up just a little bit to just prior to 9:30. So here we are just prior to 9:30, and what do we notice? Well, we notice that the NASDAQ has made a higher low, and the Dow Jones, or YM, has made a higher high here above Q2's highest high here. So what that tells me is that likely YM will make a little dump here as well, or NASDAQ or ES, one of these assets is going to go lower in price in order to take out some of these lows here before continuing higher, because we need liquidity in order to fuel the market, right? It's just a basic concept of how the market works. Not only that, but as we back out and look at our chart from this point on a higher time frame, we're going to notice something else that we use in confluence with quarterly theory to help us gauge where price is going to go. So what I have on the chart right now is the 4-hour time frame, and you'll notice we have this large fair value gap sitting here and here on YM. And what have we just taken out on YM is this high over here, or an external high. Now that we've taken that out, we need to retrace into an internal range, so price would drop us down lower to here. We failed to take out that high over here on the NASDAQ, so this asset appears to be weaker, and the asset that will go down and take the liquidity in the internal range, create another SMT for us to go long. But as we'll see, as things play out on our quarterly time frames, it'll give us a better gauge for which asset is truly the weakest. So let's drop back down now to our daily cycle, or our 15-minute time frame, and play price forward just a little bit to see where price is going at the open. As we continue on, we're at 9:15, and now we're at 9:30. And immediately you see YM sweep out this high one more time. The NASDAQ also sweeps it out, but fails to do so here initially. And if we drop down to our 5-minute time frame, we also sweep out on the 90-minute cycle. But our next candle puts in such a bearish drop that it's easy to see that we're hunting down lower for this liquidity in this fair value gap here. If we look at ES as well, same thing, comes running right up, slams right back down. But what I want you to notice is here at 9:25, we create a sequential SMT on the 90-minute cycle. So showing us that YM creates that 90-minute cycle here, taking out the high of the previous quarter and 90-minute quarter here. So likely will help us to drop lower. Now all I'm waiting for at this point is just confirmation that this will drop lower. Next candle confirms for us. And meanwhile, as I mentioned, the quarterly time cycles help us to gauge which asset is likely to run the liquidity on this bearish, for example, here, and run the liquidity here in the internal range, or that fair value gap. YM is the only one that confirmed it immediately in the next candle at the open, while sweeping out the high again. So giving us that nice purge there. And of course, the sequential SMT holds at this point. So I was pretty confident that YM was likely the weaker asset at this point. Not only is it weaker on the higher time frame, but also it's now weaker on this lower time frame. So using that to my advantage, I dropped to the 3-minute time frame to see, well, where are we at in price here that I can get on side with the market, and simply target my 2R or down to that fair value gap. So what I noticed right off the bat is that we have a 3-minute forming as well. And as soon as this candle closes here, I go ahead and enter short right here. If we play price out, even though we lost the sequential SMT, you'll notice that this continues to sink lower because it's heading from ERL to IRL following that phase of price. So it comes down and tags me out right here for a nice 2R, and it also tags this fair value gap here. So as soon as we tag that fair value gap, now we can start to look for longs out of this. As we notice, we've got a sequential SMT here on the 90-minute cycle to help take us higher. So if I go to my 5-minute time frame, which is how I view the 90-minute cycle, we can see that we took that out here at 940. And now over on the NASDAQ, once we get closure above this candle, this one being my strongest asset here, which we can see we already closed here, we can go ahead and take an entry in this next candle, which is at the time this is tagging the IRL. This is now ready to push off for long. So you could also enter the market here when we get another tag of the TCISD. Your stop is a little bit large on this one with 70 points to the low, but you can move and trim that stop up a little bit as well to what you're comfortable with here, knowing that likely we're not going to dig too far deeper into this here at the 10 o'clock open for an open low high close candle going forward. Targeting somewhere in the 2 to 2.5 range there, and you can see how easily that went off, and that was 2 potential trades you could have caught in the New York AM session there. You could have waited for the long, or you could have just traded the short, or you could trade both of them as I did that day. So that's how price played out there for the New York AM session. So let's fast forward to the following day and see what price action we get, and we'll take a look briefly at the close of Wednesday to see, well, what can we expect for Thursday going into that day. Okay, we're back on the daily chart now, and we can see Wednesday closed bullish for the NASDAQ, bullish for ES, and we're very close to all-time highs here on Thursday. So I wanted to see all-time highs get hit either Thursday or going into Friday's price action this week, just given the fact that we're so close to that target here. So clearly we see ES has been very strong here. NASDAQ as well being very strong. We've already closed above previous day highs, showing that we're still bullish here. But as we look over at YM, what happened to YM? We can see that we did take previous day high, but we closed back inside the range here, indicating that that could potentially be a bearish reversal candle. So it's something I'm watching closely going into the next day for Thursday's price action to see if maybe we get a little bit of retracement here to previous day low to give us a weekly cycle. But that would also be strange to see a weekly cycle formed for continuation so late in the week, being on a Thursday. So not likely to play out that way, but has a potential to, because we've been so bullish over the last several days, and we do need some retracement back to these fair value gaps here. So something that I am keeping an eye on, and as we'll go on to see on Thursday, I did take a loss, but we recovered that on Friday, as we'll cover on as well here further in the video. So let's get into Thursday's price action, see what we can see, and then break it down from there. Okay, so here we are on the hourly time frame to look at Thursday's price action here. And well, what do we see? Well, we see that we did make a move higher. We still haven't taken out all-time highs over here on either asset, NQ or ES. But again, we're going to need to rely on our daily cycle time frame, or 15-minute, to see where can we position ourselves throughout this day. And so what we want to be watchful for, again, as I had mentioned, is that YM does have the potential to move lower today, to take out some of that liquidity before fueling us to move up higher as well. So that's something that we do want to be watchful for. And as we can see, we did get that particular move. But I'm going to show you where I got tripped up and just made a simple mistake as well, and how we recovered from that on Friday. But we're going to look at the New York AM session here to see what did price do prior and how we were going to position ourselves for the 9:30 open. So let's do that now. And as we back up in time here just a little bit, what do we notice so far about our price action here? Well, we can see that price is lining up to take us lower with now a two-stage sequential SMT on our daily cycle. We also now have a daily cycle sequential SMT here from Q3 to Q2 as well, just showing that we are indeed bearish. But as we'll go on to see, we did have some very strange wicks overnight as well, or early morning at 7 a.m. and then another one here coming up that did kind of throw things off a little bit on YM as we swept out this low down here, which we didn't really expect to once we had taken these lows here at the 6:30 a.m. candle on the NASDAQ. So if I replay that just a little bit further back, you'll see what I'm talking about, that we actually had a bullish cycle formed here. And it was a two-stage as well when we go back in price here. But of course that one candle at 7 a.m. eliminated that sequential SMT. But it did close back above. So at this point we still have that hidden sequential SMT. I don't necessarily prefer to use hiddens, but it can help to give you a little bit of market direction and sentiment as well. But overall, with that particular move, we did explode higher from there. So as we play price forward a little bit to where we were, we'll see what happens and transpires closer to the 9:30 open. So at the 9:30 open, this is where I got tripped up just a little bit as I had dropped down too far to the 90-minute cycle or the 5-minute time frame. And what I had seen was this right here, a sweeping out Q2's low in the 90-minute time frame here and closing back above. And of course with YM, we had closed above here, which would be the corresponding down close candle here on YM. So we did have a temporary change in the state of delivery here with the closure above, and I did long this here, and in hindsight it's obvious that that was a mistake on my part, just dropping down time frame and not watching the daily cycle here for what was already forming here and had formed, just getting lost in price action there as I was at work. I was very busy, so that can happen. You will make mistakes in your trading, as I did here. But overall, we took our one loss here, and we're ready to move on for the day. But as you can see here, we got tagged in on this down close candle there. So let me move that over. We did have a nice pump and reaction here, but as we can see, this failed rather quickly here. And then, of course, price went on to dump, as expected. And was my plan originally going into the morning. I just confused myself, and of course after looking at days and days and days worth, years worth of candlesticks, sometimes you start to remember different days and they all blend together. So you're going to make mistakes like this, but that was my goof there, taking the long when obviously we were short here. YM had just run up a little bit higher, taking out the highs, while NASDAQ was already making its move lower and working off this two-stage sequential SMT here on the daily cycle. And so playing this out, of course, we are still bullish on the week overall, but we can trade this manipulation move downwards here, fueling the longs for further, because we do have plenty of room to the downside here to move as well. So as soon as that downside move gets completed down here, we can see that price begins to move higher from there. We also have a hidden sequential SMT in here, signaling that the move is over. You can even drop down to micros. I believe there was also micro cycle here as well, moving us higher right out of that drop lower. I don't particularly like to trade the micro cycle sequential SMTs, although you can, and I know plenty of traders that do, and they're very profitable doing it. But it tends to be lower probability, of course, because you need to keep an eye on what's happening in those higher time frame cycles to know which lower time frame or micro cycle to trade, because you definitely don't want to be trading all of them. So that's how Thursday transpired. Took a loss there, trying to catch a long higher, just not realizing that I was in the wrong time frame here, and seeing that price played out lower, I'm ready to now trade Friday's price higher again, now that we've taken out some of these lows and now we've been filled up with our liquidity to drive this even higher up to all-time highs here on ES for the Friday. So let's take a look at the next day's price action and see what we find. Okay, we're back on the daily time frame now, and what do we need to look for? How did Thursday's price close in relation to Wednesday's? Well, we can see easily that Thursday took Wednesday's high, closed above. Same thing on ES, and we're very close to our draw of all-time highs here. Definitely reachable for Friday to help close off the week. And of course YM failing to take the low, but of course closing here not quite above previous day high, but based on the other two assets we can tell that we are bullish. So this previous day high is definitely a target on the table going into the overnight session, especially into London. And then looking to trade the New York AM session here on ES or the NASDAQ up to all-time highs. And so that's what we'll be watching for on Friday, and hopefully recovering that loss that we took on Thursday as well. So let's drop down to our daily cycle time frame now and see what transpired throughout the day and how we could get on side with those moves. So taking a look at our daily cycle here in the 15-minute time frame, what do we notice already? Well, we notice that we have the defining range built out here in quarter one of Asia on the daily cycle. London took that out, and then of course had a nice closure here. So if you were a London trader, that would have been your trade. You probably would have been holding this to all-time highs as well, because likely that's our draw for Friday that, as we can see, we did hit, and that would have been a really nice long you would have caught on NASDAQ or ES as well. I would have held NASDAQ to all-time highs, taken off ES there at all-time highs, or holding on runners as well. But that just goes to show how powerful these time cycles are and just how precise they can be. And as we look at Asia here on the YM, we'll go ahead and mark out that same candle as well here. Nice perfect tag of it here at 2:30 in London. So overall, a nice day. So anytime that we have Asia accumulate like this, likely what you're going to see is London manipulate that, expand away. And so our option coming into the New York AM session here, as we back this up into replay, is where can we position ourselves on side to catch part of this move? And what can we expect price action to do? Well, if we're looking at this already, does it seem reasonable that we would retrace this far down just to manipulate on the daily cycle? No, that's not likely. If we look at our 90-minute cycle, does that also make sense that we would retrace down, here's 925, that we would retrace down all the way down here in order to manipulate this low here at about 735? Not likely either. That's way too far of a move, and if we make that large and steep of a move that quick at the New York Open, then likely I'm assuming for the day that we're either going to chop around and leave those all-time highs for the new week opening gap for Sunday or potentially Monday's price action. So I definitely don't want to see that. So I'm watching now for this day a microcycle, but something that I did here in expectation of this Q2 to expand after we had this consolidation is just to continue expanding through Q2. And so I actually positioned a long here, right about here when I got onto the chart in the morning with my stop here at this Q1 low, because I'm not expecting, if price expands in Q2, I'm not expecting a deep retrace down into here to take out quarter one's low, just because it doesn't make sense for the profile on the day and for us to reach all-time highs for today, which was my draw. So as you see on some of my other social posts, I did take this long here, getting out somewhere about in here for a nice about 4R there. And then later on in the morning, I waited for that microcycle to form here, just roughly here shortly, that I could catch as a trade as well. So backing out just a little bit here, we can see that all three assets traded below this microcycle low. So now we're waiting past the 9:30 open, we're going to let that play out just a little bit, and then closer to 9:45's microcycle or 10 a.m.'s microcycle, we'll see if we can position ourselves to catch all-time highs here. So let's play price forward a little bit and see what we get. So as we can see on the chart, we did have a bearish microcycle here heading into the open. Not something that I'm looking to get on side on. I'm not trying to pick the very top here, especially when we're so close to all-time highs. I'm also not trying to trade any microcycle retracements or 90-minute cycle retracements. Just because we've been so bullish on the week, I don't want to get caught offside if perhaps price only makes a shallow move for a pullback and then we continue higher. So it's something that I avoid in my own trading. I'm just looking for those continuation trades. So now we're at 9:44 a.m. so the next microcycle begins here. And so all I'm watching for right now is just a drop below this microcycle low. So as we continue on in price here, that's exactly what we get right here with ES. So we switch over to that asset right here at 9:48, dropping below this microcycle's lowest low here in Q2. So we're below the defining range here in Q1. So this is a trade that I do like to take if you know my Chronos Precision Protocol model. We do have the closure here. I'm in particular on the microcycle. I'm a fan of waiting for this IFVG to form as well, and then taking an entry there. I was actually at work today, so I didn't actually catch the TCISD here or the IFVG, so I did take an entry off the breaker here, just holding that long. As we can see, this is the leading asset here, makes the higher low. We'd close off the IFVG, giving us even more confirmation, so you could actually enter long off the tag right here of the TCISD candle. You could enter long off the IFVG if we get a retest of that with your stop either at the low or just somewhere here in the wick, targeting these all-time highs. Or if it was me, I jumped on the chart. I was at work, a little bit distracted at the moment, saw this candle had closed above, and I set in a long limit here at the top of the breaker with my stop down here, just targeting again about 2R to the top or all-time highs there. Immediately get tagged in the next candle. We have a nice little candle that comes out of nowhere, digging very deep in here, tagging the inverse fair value gap again, likely scaring out a lot of traders thinking that, well, maybe perhaps we're dumping a little bit here. But of course, as we go on and see, price did at 10 o'clock have an open low high close, taking out all-time highs. Took a little bit more time, and eventually there we do reach all-time highs. I took my trade off though right about in here, just because I don't want to get caught in potentially them leaving all-time highs for the week to take out during the next week. So I went ahead and took off just a few points early. To me, it's not worth holding just for a few extra bucks to get those few extra points. I'd rather go ahead and take my move, not risk it coming all the way back on me, break even or to a partial area here that I'm trailing my stop to. So that's how I trade that, and nice overall in the week, several wins. If you've seen my P&L there, I posted on other social posts as well, you'll see that quite profitable on the week, even though I did have one loss there on Thursday, which was just my mistake and my goof. I'm only human, and that's going to happen, but ultimately a nice week playing out on the funded accounts here, and going into next week very close to hitting some more payouts, so we'll post those soon as well. But that's a nice weekly breakdown for us here on the indices. So nice bullish push this week, hitting all-time highs on NQ as well as ES here, showing some extreme strength here. So excited to see what next week does and how we play out. Perhaps we get some more retracements into some of these gaps early in the week, but overall heading into next week bullish. Of course, we'll see how price plays out with what new week opening gap we get. But stay tuned for next week as well as we drop more content, more education. Leave me some comments on the video today. Let me know if you like these breakdowns every week. Let me know what other content you want to see, and of course, drop me a follow and subscribe. Like the video as well. Share it with your friends so they can have the benefit of all this content and knowledge as well, as I'm sharing it for free here on YouTube. Appreciate you following me. Stay tuned for the next video. And if you'd like to join my Discord as well, there will be a link in the comments below pinned where you can grab that link and join my Discord as well, where you can even see me trade live in the morning. So look forward to seeing all of you in there in the Discord as well. Take care. Have a great weekend. See you in the next one.